Hi, everyone. My name is Faith Eason. My business is Hocal Safety Management. I'm a safety enhancement specialist. So I work with from small businesses, from a micro business right up to a business that might have up to 60 employees. So I'm a freelance safety consultant. I also do one-off projects for large organizations. So it could be they want to update the safety management systems. It might be that they want an audit. They might need assistance with workers' compensation. They might want me to train their staff. I also write blog posts, etc. So today I'm going to talk to you about records management, the importance of records management. Why is it important for your business to have records management? Records management will be part of a process that will demonstrate your compliance with the legislation. The legislation requires you to maintain specific records, or they require you to carry out specific activities, you might say. So in other words, hazard reporting. They will basically want you to have records on hazard reporting and see what actions you have taken on the hazard. First aid. When there was somebody injured with that, what actions did you take to help them? That's just in a nutshell. So there's other things like, training records, etc. What training they've done. Other organizations might be like, like equipment. Some equipment has to be certified. It has to be serviced after, every duration, whether it's every 6 months, every 12 months, testing and tagging of electrical equipment. There's all those different types of registers that are required depending on what type of industry or business you're in. So those records are really important, because what happens is, say for instance, there's an incident or an injury that relates to that. So someone is electrocuted. They might be using a simple bit of equipment. Maybe it could be something as simple as a welding machine, or it could be a drill, or it could be a sander. It could be anything, but because that cable maybe has been damaged, and that's how they got electric shock or electrocuted or whatever it might be. So what will happen then is that when the investigation takes place, they want to cite the records with regards to testing and tagging of the electrical equipment. So depending on whether that you've met the regulatory requirements on how often you should be testing and tagging that particular type of equipment. And again, depending on your industry. So if you're in a very hostile industry, like sometimes it might be construction. So there's a lot of, you're moving around with cables all over the floor, you're dragging them all over the floor or whatever. Then the requirement is that testing and tagging happens more regularly. Apologies, I don't know where I stopped, but I just had the call come through. We're talking about records management. So it's extremely important to have those records, because the records are going to be the ones that support you in those situations where there's serious injury. And if it's, as I said, we're talking about testing and tagging, electrocution, there's that possibility that could cause a fatality. And that is when that record is going to help you, because if you have done the right thing, had that equipment tested and tagged in accordance with the regulation, that's going to protect you. That's how serious it could be for you if you do not have records, because that would mean that there would be negligence. And negligence means that you then, there's fines and penalties, etc. And of course, there's still that guilt. If you haven't done the right thing and somebody's been critically injured or it's caused a fatality, it wouldn't be a good feeling for any workplace. So records are really important. And again, there's also, even if you're thinking about it, it's hazards and risks. Have you managed that hazard? How would you manage that hazard? Your worker has reported this hazard. What actions have you taken? So again, if you've taken the right steps and you got the hazard and the proof, the paper-based or the paper trail to say that you've done all these things to mitigate that risk, again, that's going to protect your business. Because if you don't take the time to follow through with the hazard reporting and putting in measures to control that hazard, in the long term, that's going to come back and bite you. You might think, oh, this is a waste of time. Why should I do it? But it's not going to help you not to do it, because in that unforeseeable circumstance, and I'm saying unforeseeable circumstance, that an incident, a serious incident or injury happens, and you haven't taken the right steps to follow through with that hazard report, then it's going to put you in a bad place. And then even if you're looking at it in terms of first aid, it's important as well. Often, like I've had circumstances where, people have told me, like, because I do training, and people will come back and, report, recall a few incidents that they're aware of. And one particular one, which is so simple, was based in the office. Most people that are in the office are under the notion that, oh, look, we are low risk. Our office is low risk. We don't need to have those systems and processes or, complete all these forms and whatever it might be. But this one particular example that this person gave, they said, this lady got a paper cut. And she said, oh, it's just a paper cut. Why must I fill in the injury register? 3 months down the track, the woman got such a bad infection on that finger through that cut that her finger had to be amputated. Everybody knew she got the paper cut at work. She did not complete the injury register. She couldn't use it as workers' compensation. So what happens? She lost her finger. There was time off work. There was time in the hospital with medical treatment, doctors, whatever else. None of it was covered. Simple thing you might say. Paper cut. But no, oh, it's just a paper cut. Why should I do this? That's okay. But then what happened in the end? So that's why I say it's important. Records are important, really important that you write down what that is. You complete that form. Because then you got that backup to say, okay, this happened 3 months ago or 6 months ago. And I mean, I've also known of somebody else that, had a bit of a scratch. Oh, I've got a scratch. It looks okay now, but they did complete the form. And the doctor next looked, the infection was so bad. I think it was on her neck. She had scratched that. But the neck was so bad, and it was quite an infection that you'd normally get it from somebody else, so, but this person, because she worked with patients and things like that. And they had known that she was with this client that had that type of infection. So she was she was she was able to actually have the workers' compensation. So she got the treatment. So what I'm saying is extremely important that you do have records. And again, when it comes to records, depending on what type of record it is, and there's some records that are obsolete, like we know a lot of the time with things like our taxation, they normally said, oh, keep it for 7 years. But depending on what industry you're in and the type of documents, there's some records that you have to keep for 75 years. So you've got to be clear. You've got to be clear on what records you should maintain and what duration. Because even if you're looking at an industry, light to heavy industry, so if they were working with, say, with dust, silicon, asbestos, those are called latent diseases. They only show up years later. Silicon is a bit more, comes to with the engineered bench tops. Those that's showing up quicker, but the others like asbestos, etc., are latent. They take a lot longer to impact on those workers. So that's why when they're looking at those type of records, they're saying if you've had an employee working in your industry, like dust diseases and all that, you need to maintain those records for 75 years or whatever it might be. They have a longer duration, or they regulate that you must keep those records for longer because it's a latent disease. So yeah, records management is really important because that is going to make a difference to you. I'll give you an example. I was still in administration. I hadn't at the time, I don't think I had started my studies with work health and safety. I was just in an admin position. A staff walked into our offices, and basically what she just, oh, look, you know, I've just hurt my back. I was with this client. This is what she made me, you know, she was caring for her daughter, or her daughter was caring for a parent. And as a result, I've strained my back. You know, the daughter was quite, she says the daughter was very, what is it? It was like very demanding. Oh, you just help me move my mother. You know, she was hesitant. No, I can't do that. I'm not allowed to do that. Oh, you just help me move my mother. And as a result, she strained the back. So I had to sit with her and actually complete the injury investigation. So it was about a 4-page document. So I sat with her, went through the process, completed it, etc., etc. So about 5 years down the track, you know, she hadn't, a few years down the track, she hadn't recovered from this back injury. And she then was litigating. And she was, her lawyers were really claiming for quite a large sum, almost $1 million. And for some reason, the records that I had maintained within the office were actually thrown out when I was absent from the office, were thrown out by a few people that weren't quite educated around why you have the documents. They felt the folder I had it in wasn't really matching the new office. So they just threw out the records. So all the training records, all the records that I had, that I maintained, they threw them out. I had been sent on another assignment to do archiving for another part of the organization. So they were the ones going through my records and throwing out the important documents. So what happened is basically now, when this person was litigating, we couldn't produce the proof to say this person had been trained. At the time, computers and things like that weren't, you know, most things were paper-based. So anyway, when it came to, so the case went over many months, and it was costing the organization quite a bit because a whole entourage of people had to go to the main city and sit and wait while the lawyers sit and argued in the court, in the workers' compensation court. And by the fifth time, the lawyer that was depending our organization rang this lady that was actually doing the return to work and said, look, is there any other documents you can think about that we don't have that might be able to help this case? So she says, the only one I can think about is the first document, which was the incident investigation. I don't know, for some reason that document was not sent with the rest of the filing information. So she rang me and she says, can you go into that person's file and email me that, that interest fax that time. Can you fax me that document, which I did. She then faxed it on to the lawyer. Within half an hour, he was back. Says, I want this lady that did this investigation, the initial investigation on the injury, to be in Sydney when we next meet for the case. So I was ushered to Sydney with the rest of the entourage. In other words, the branch manager, the other service coordinators, and etc. So in going there, basically what happened is they basically said to me, look, what we have to do, we just sit in this cafe and we'll wait until we are called. Just be aware, we could be here the whole day drinking coffee, because it depends what they're arguing about and how long it's going to take. So we were busy sitting there, and the branch manager sat with me and said, look, they might want you to come up and they might be there to question you. So she just tried to talk to me about it. And of course, I wasn't used to this sort of stuff. And she just tried to say to me, be aware that, the line of questioning might be a bit challenging. So she says, but you know that, you've done, you're honest, you've done the right thing, and you got integrity and whatever she said to me. Anyway, so we're sitting there and things like that. And, sitting and talking and whatever else, and, whatever we're doing and drinking coffee. And 11 o'clock, we get a message, and the message is, okay, don't worry, you can go now. So everybody's surprised, we can go now. Then we left. And of course, we went back to hotels and whatever else. And then the next time when we, then we had to, obviously we already booked into the hotel for the night. So the manager said, look, it's a bit late for us to travel. Let us then, so of course we stayed on, and the next day we traveled back to the office. And the message was that they had a look at the injury investigation form. And on the injury investigation that I had done, the initial investigation that I had done, I had put in one word. And that's what made the difference. When I did the investigation, there's certain things that I wrote in there, and that's what made the difference. So what I'm saying to you is that records are important. If, for instance, when I think about it, if at the start, I don't know why they didn't send through that injury investigation. Because if they did, it would have saved the company. They had to go down about 3 or 4 times before the case was closed, before they reached a compromise or decision. And where the organization was nearly going to be, we're going to be sued for about $1 million, it was reduced to 1/3 of that. So records are extremely important. And sometimes you're thinking it's just one small record. It's just another document. Like as I said, the first aid. I mean, even the injury investigation, yes, it was a 4-page document, but, you know, I spent about 15 minutes talking to this lady. But look, saved the organization over $600,000. So incidents and you know, records management is really important, and it's important what documents and what registers should be maintained. And if you got any questions, I can help you with that. So once again, once I upload this video up to, once I upload this video, I'm going to put in some details with regards to how you can contact me. So I'm going to put in my website, click on my website, there's a contact form, complete that, I get that. Once I get that form, I can contact you because I'll have your details, your availability, and I'm able to answer any questions you have. And I do give a 30-minute free consultation. So might not only be on records management. I do safety management systems. I'm a return to a coordinator, so injury and claims management, so workers' compensation. I'm an auditor, I'm a trainer. I do ergonomics at the workstation. So there's various things I do, and I provide holistic services to organizations. And for large organizations, I also do one-off projects. So whether it's updating work health and safety systems, whether it's helping them with audits, or whether it's training their staff, or again, workers' compensation. I can help them with different things. And I also do workplace blogs. I do blogs for different companies. So whatever is needed, I'm able to help. So thank you for listening. And as I said, just contact me if you need some help.